up to, but we are live. Like, what is going on today? It is a showdown breakdown. Jacksonville, Cincinnati, Monday Night Football. Where am I? Who am I? Guys, before we started, Bobby and I were just kind of talking about this weekend slate, and I have to, and of course, Dixon Sider, we talk about this a little bit. Like, it's hard to fade that easy chalk, but like anybody 50% owned can always be faded.
But you know what the craziest part is? That dude was in the Millie winning lineup still.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's hard to fade that.
Exactly, yes.
Because even in a fail, and by the way, the number of goal line carries that man had, like, it wasn't just a couple. It was opportunity after opportunity. So you fade it to your peril. But really, the call of the weekend, Bobbywow, and I know you're a humble man, and you'll never take credit for things that you say. So part of it is my job. So we're doing tournament tactics. And once again, at the very end of the show, say, who's your sneaky play? And Bobbywow says, Chuba Hubbard. And I made a face and an eye roll. I did. I was like, Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard. Are you serious right now?
I liked him, and I liked Tyquan Thornton a lot. He was my other guy. And man, he dropped a big pass that I think would have maybe gotten him there.
He could have had a nuts game if he catches that ball. I saw the drop. So it was Tyquan, but Chuba Hubbard was in the nuts. Not only that, he got you off of all of these running backs that didn't hit. All of the running backs. So this is the problem with the running back position. 1 week, they all hit. All of those same spots. And the next week, it's a fucking disaster. Yeah. Javonte Williams, what happened to you? I think Ramondre was going to have a good game until he gets hurt like 2 minutes in.
Yeah, he was on
the way. He was on the way to doing what we wanted. Irish Jeebs, you can only blame yourself for not watching till the end of Tournament Tactics. I know it's a long show. I did try to get some Chuba in the afternoon only slate, but even that wasn't enough. And the other big one was, I wouldn't have been on this. I wouldn't have been on Mike Evans. I think he smashed. I wasn't going to be on that. All in on Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
That worked out. Heavy exposure to Brock Purdy. Great.
Yep. Deebo Samuel.
Yep. So here's what happened, though. I had a lot of Purdy, but you kind of double stacking it. You needed Purdy only with Deebo. Ayuk didn't get there, not because Ayuk had a terrible game, but because Tyreek Hill was so much better, and you needed him.
Yep.
Yeah. And in fairness, I had run out of blue moons, and that has been a bad omen the 2 times that it's happened.
What? Come on. We got to make sure that doesn't happen again. I know. I remember that. I thought we talked about that never happening again.
I can never let it happen again.
You believed, and then it happened.
Yeah. I went down. I was like, oh my God, I got to delay the players. I didn't know what to do.
It's brutal.
Been pounding blue moons. It's been one of those kind of weeks.
Yep.
So
no judgment.
Yeah. Listen, shit happens. All right. We're moving on, guys. We are on to Monday Night Football. Sunday night was another whack a job. What the fuck? Right? Wait, I need to react to that for a second. Wearing my Packers green and yellow today. Is Jordan Love not bad anymore? Has he turned? Is this like a Justin Fieldsian late season turnaround?
Yeah, he's been so much better as of late. He went from being a total bum the first several weeks to now, Bears fans are like, man, do the Packers really have another one again? Like, he's looked really good, and he did it again last night against the Chiefs passing defense. It's been pretty good.
He's been good. Like, okay, I think he's a player in the NFL. I think he's a guy that's going to stick around.
Yep,
I don't know.
Agreed.
I'm liking it. We have to pay attention to it. And, I got to look at my sheets and my metrics and all the numbers, but we're going to start playing these wide receivers. Like, wait, is Christian Watson playable now? I've been waiting all year for that.
The eye test. Yeah.
I've been waiting it. I'm waiting for it.
That poor guy though got hurt again. You see that play?
Which one?
Watson was trying to stay in bounds toward the end to keep the clock going, and he hurt himself. I think he hurt his quad or his hammy again. Yeah. Dude's
always getting hurt, man. All right, let's get into this. Let's get into this slate here, Bobbywow. Jaguars at the Bengals, or vice versa. Who's at home here?
Now you have me doubting it.
I don't have my screen open.
It's the Bengals at the Jags, Geek.
Bengals at the Jags. That's right. Bengals at the Jaguars. Now, before I even do the matchup sheet, I wanted to show the power ranking for this game. So if you take a look here, it does not bode well for Bengals running attack, as they are projected to only get 64 yards. Now, of course, these numbers are compiled pre-Joe Burrow injury, and maybe the Bengals will just naturally lean heavier on the run. So I could see the running back doing a little better than this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's noteworthy that the Jaguars are very, very good against the run. Effectively, like one of the best teams against the run in the NFL right now. If you look at Jaguars DVP metric here, 30 yards. This is the best against the run of any team. Yeah, they're number one. So not a big Joe Mixon spot. At least on paper.
Good. I think we were all looking for a reason to go light on Joe Mixon.
Yeah, right? I mean, it's a good reason to go light, right? Again, these matchups, they only mean what they mean, and they don't mean that much. In a sense, anything can beat the bad matchup. It's not that relevant, but it's relevant enough. Yeah. Jacksonville, though, projecting to get a lot of rushing yards, 137. It does look like a good Travis Etienne spot, and then pretty neutral for both of these teams against the pass. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, Cincinnati they've kind of struggled across the board defensively, but the Jags have been pretty good against the pass, right? Or am I making that up?
The Jags? I mean, Jags are good.
They've been horrible against the pass, along with the Bengals.
Let's bring it. Yeah, no, you could throw on them. You could throw on the Jaguars. Can't run on them.
You could do anything against the Bengals.
The Bengals have nothing going on defensively that is any kind of good. They're minus 24, minus 25, so they are terrible defensively. So terrible. Okay.
Terrible.
So terrible. All right. Let's take a look here at the matchup sheet. Make it a little bigger. I
see we've reverted from dark mode back to light.
Yeah,
mode.
I went back to the light. I'm back and forthing, and I'm really trying to figure it out. But we're updating these tools on the DFS Army website, and soon it will be a whole different look. Anyway, we're gonna try to get away from sheet embeds into more I don't know, web tool looking things. So awesome. Maybe
like a sunset mode.
What's that?
We need like a sunset mode, something between light and dark.
Yeah, and need some modes for the colors for sure. All right, so yeah, Mixon only had 8 rushing opportunities last week with Browning. Didn't go well. So let's start with the Jacksonville side here. And I think one interesting thing last week about what I'm seeing here on the snap percentages is the rise of D'Ernest Johnson. Do you know why he got so many touches last week relative to just generally ETN getting 80% all season long?
I want to say ETN got banged up a little bit in the game, which is why Johnson saw an elevated snap share. Because I know there were some questions about him being active tonight, but he's going to play. I don't think it'll be a problem. But yeah, I want to say he got banged up.
The chest, right? He got some like a chest injury. So we'll see about that. I guess there is some re-injury. There's always going to be some re-injury risk. So let's, strategy for those who like to play for injury replacements. D'Ernest Johnson is the number 2. It's no longer Tank Bigsby.
It's crazy.
It's no longer Bigsby Smalls, as they call him. At wide receiver, Zay Jones back in the mix last week. Didn't do a whole lot, but what I like about this team, Bobbywow, is that much like last year, this is the same version. This is what the Jags were last year too. It was those 3 guys. It was one tight end and a running back, and that was the offense that they run most of the time.
Yep.
It does appear that when they need like a 4th man or a double tight end, it is Luke Farrell, who got 42% snap count last week and 13% of the targets, which was a shockingly high target share for Mr. Luke Farrell. So
it's not. I don't know if it's fantasy relevant necessarily, but did I see Doug Peterson's son is getting the call up tight end as well?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, here's a comment here about. Listen, I don't think that's fantasy relevant, but it's kind of cool. Yeah.
Josh Peterson feels like the guy who's going to dial up a play for him, but I'm not touching.
No. I don't know about. Yeah, we don't even know if he'll be in the game.
It's true.
That is a risky one. He might not even be in the player pool.
I'm not touching it.
Yeah, he might not actually be. We might not have to make a choice on that one anyway. So I think we're okay. That's it. There's no turds on Jacksonville. Let's get it straight. The closest thing to a viable turd are Dearness Johnson and Luke Farrell. No? Am I missing one?
I don't know. I don't like. Yeah, I just saying I don't like him
I'm
either.
waiting for your reaction, so I know I'm saying something that's right.
It's straightforward. Zay Jones to me he's the intriguing part. You mentioned him already, but that guy has the ability to explode. He's one of those guys that can put up a massive number in a hurry, and he's going to be really low owned after last week. So Zay Jones is the guy that I want to be overweight on.
Yes. I like Zay. I loved Zay last year. Zay was almost a cheat code. Zay was my Greg Dortch from last year.
He was.
Like worked every week. It was like, but it worked better. Yeah, that's right. It was like that, but it was working. He was getting the targets, but he'd actually do something with them. So, I think we go right back to Zay Jones been knocking the dust off. He's been out for most of the year. You got to get the dust off.
Yeah. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence finds a groove where he just locks in with Zay Jones at points. We saw it last season a bunch, like you said. So, big play guy, can score touchdowns. I like him.
Yeah. No, I like him as well. All right. The Bengals side is much more confusing.
Yes.
That's why I started with the Jags, because the Bengals side is just a fucking mess. And it just starts up top with, Jake Browning at QB, and I don't know about this guy, right? Any takeaways from Browning last year or last week?
Yeah, I mean, I thought he looked okay. He looked fine, maybe better than I expected. He threw the ball a bunch. The Bengals weren't afraid to get him throwing. Kind of the usual suspects as well in terms of who he was throwing to. He gets T. Higgins back. He was pretty good in college. I think he played for Washington, set some records there. He can sling the ball. So nothing like popping off the charts, but I thought he exceeded my expectations.
Can we agree that Browning would immediately be the best QB on the New York Jets roster if he was on that roster?
100%. Jets, Giants, I think fit that bill.
Yeah.
A couple teams
would agree there. He wasn't terrible. I think he put up 12 or 13 DraftKings fantasy points in that game. He's not exactly lighting up the fantasy scoreboard, but he played competent. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see what happened last week. We have the return of T. Higgins. He should just pick up the Trent Irwin snaps and just be that guy. So it's going to be Chase, Higgins, and Boyd. Irwin will be relegated to, just occasional snaps, as will the rest of these turds.
Yeah, Irwin will be back in that Eosivas role where he's getting, 25, 30% share.
And then you have a group of 4 tight ends, all of which get snaps and all of which get targets. And that is really where the grossness begins and ends, Bobbywow.
Yeah.
For this team.
Yeah, it's gross. And you have to pay attention.
I've been liking Tanner Hudson, though. They scheme plays to him. I've got him on a bunch of my fantasy rosters at this point as a backup, as sort of a tight end. I picked him up on my best ball leagues that I can pick up players in, which you could do on some sleeper leagues. And he's been scoring.
Yeah, I think most importantly is Jake Browning likes Tanner Hudson. I mean, really small sample size, but that's something interesting to point out too. 20% of the targets is a big deal. So
what's wild about that is actually he was barely on the field, and like when he's out on the field, they just throw to him. So it's really interesting. I want to bet an over on Tanner Hudson receptions or yardage. Like if it's really low, I need to check that. If it's really low, am I using Browning at captain? I'm going to say no to that. Not at all.
Probably not.
Yeah. I can't see why I would want to use him.
MVP on FanDuel, maybe. Probably not captain for me on DraftKings.
I don't think I'm going there at MVP either, big dog. Hell no.
A GPP strategy.
Yeah.
To me, he's like, obviously not really a great comparison because Dobbs has the rushing ability, but he at least has the talent, right? Like a Tommy DeVito for the Giants.
Yeah, that's
There's
fair.
never that extra level where he could potentially hit it and be
Yeah.
good for a couple games.
Yeah, that's fair. That. And Tommy D's got like a 30-point game under his belt.
Yeah, that was a fluke. Okay.
He's got a 30-pointer.
No Tim Boyle. He's got
Tim Boyle.
Decent talent.
Yeah. I don't think that there's like too many paths for him to get there. Without running for a touchdown.
Agreed. It's highly unlikely.
Yeah. He needs to run for a touchdown in a low-scoring game to get there, really. Why did the Jets not pick up Dobbs? Obviously, they weren't looking at my tweets. I tweet at the Jets, correct advice all the time. Guys, you should pick up Dobbs. I'm like, call the Saints for Jameis Winston. They don't listen. They don't listen to me. Yeah, so 512 is saying Browning runs a little bit.
He can.
Yeah.
He can run a little bit. I don't think he's going to go crazy, but yeah, a couple rushes.
All right, so let's talk through DraftKings. Actually, let's go to the domination station first. I like to sort. I like to do a little sort by ownership just to get a visual of the ownerships before we get into it. So let's just take a look real quick, Bobbywow, at the domination station, and I'm going to sort by captain ownership on DraftKings here and get a sense of what we're looking at. Lawrence, Etienne, Chase in that order. Kirk Ridley, Evan Ingram. And then we've got Mixon, Browning, Jaguars defense, Higgy, Smalls, and Boyd, and the rest of them.
You can Zay Jones down there at 2%.
And Zay Jones is playable.
It's enticing. Yes, he is. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think actually Zay Jones. So earlier in the season, I'll just mention this about Zay Jones versus Christian Kirk. And we didn't see it last week. So this is an important thing to bring up. Earlier this season, Zay Jones was getting 90%. Ridley would get 90%. And it was Christian Kirk who got the 60% slot guy numbers for snap counts. But if I look at last week, with Zay Jones back, that split didn't happen. All three of them were out there pretty much the whole time. So what impact would the return? I think the return of Zay Jones is a net negative.
Yes.
Definitely a net negative for Christian Kirk for me. He's the one who takes the bigger hit.
Agreed 100%.
Yeah. So there it is. It's a net negative for Kirk. It doesn't mean Christian Kirk can't have a good game. But he's the one that's likely to be harmed the most from the return of him.
Yeah, again, small sample size, right? But back in week 1 when they all played, Zay Jones 5 catches, a touchdown. Calvin Ridley 8 catches and a touchdown. Christian Kirk had 1 catch. 1 catch on 3 targets. So again, really small sample size, but just another thing to point out.
Now, DFSupNORTH does love Christian Kirk here. And I don't want to. So this is the DFSupNORTH cheat sheet, and he does love Christian Kirk. So yeah, it could go either way. Personally,
like you mentioned too, like the injury piece, that's big. We don't know that Zay Jones will have the same role that he had earlier this season when he was healthy. So,
I think Etienne to me, and I'm surprised to see only 2 stars. I think Etienne is one of the better captain choices. This kind of game where it could come down to just the Jaguars playing really good defense in a low scoring game. That's how I lean. I think Jaguars just play pretty good defense, kind of put a beating on the Bengals here.
Yeah, the ownership is the only thing that bugs me about Etienne. I'm hoping with that Q tag he might sink a little bit, but that is man.
Now the other thing that's been happening recently is like Trevor Lawrence keeps rushing for touchdowns and becoming the nuts. He did it again last week. If you look at where is this? Oh, I don't have DraftKings. If you look at Trevor Lawrence last week, like how's he getting these good scores, right? He's running for touchdowns. Because before he was running for touchdowns, it was 18s, 15s, and 19s. But here in these two games, all of a sudden, he's rushing for a touchdown, goes up. Rushing for 2 touchdowns, it goes up. So he's been running for touchdowns, Bobbywow.
He's been running for touchdowns, and he almost has to. He hasn't had a single game this season with more than 2 touchdowns. He finally passed the 300-yard mark since week 5.
Yeah,
so
hasn't been spectacular at QB. My fantasy teams with Trevor Lawrence have not done well this year until the last few weeks. So I don't know what to do with that, but I think he's a viable captain as well.
Definitely viable captain. I just think it means you don't necessarily have to stack him with more than one guy.
Definitely. And I think if he's getting there, it almost has to be that he ran for one. Because if he's getting there with his arm, that means, Ridley's going nuts, or one of those guys, somebody else is going crazy. They do spread the football around, though, quite a bit on the Jaguars. All 4 of those guys will get targets and passes. Oh, some trends for tonight. Bengals defense, terrible the last few weeks, but Cincy is horrible on Monday Night Football, apparently.
Not going to be any better without Joey B.
I mean, the Bengals have given up on the season. They're just out there having some fun.
So sad.
We were talking about a couple weeks ago. We were talking about Burrow or like the Bengals or the Raiders for the Ravens for the second best team in the AFC. At this point, it might be mood. I think maybe Miami is there. I think Buffalo. I don't know. KC looks like they're on the downswing.
KC looks terrible.
Yeah, they might be on the downswing. All right, let's get into let's get into the rest of this. So, Jamar Chase. Do I really need to account for Jamar Chase here?
Yeah, I think so. I think you do. Because here's the thing. I think when the slate locks, everything goes live. My hunch is that we see Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk, their ownership elevate. And I think Jamar Chase, T. Higgins is already way down there. But I think those guys come down in ownership a bit. So, to me, Jamar Chase is a guy who can get there PPR wise. If the Jaguars put up some points early on, Bengals are throwing, he could beat the Jags through the air. So I would account for him. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know that Browning can produce a score big enough to a wide receiver to pay off on that price.
Maybe not. Certainly not as exciting as Joey B throwing to him.
Yeah.
But Baker Mayfield's, he's given Mike Evans some good performances. So why not Browning?
Yeah, Baker's yeah.
I know. I was just teasing.
I don't know if I could compound. I'm not ready to put Browning up there yet. He's
I
not
was joking. Just taking a shot.
Yeah. So, obviously Ridley's in a good spot. If they throw to him a lot, 21, 34 the last 2 weeks, both of those scores probably good enough for Nuts captain. I think the 21 that Ridley got on 6 targets, 5 receptions last week is probably higher than any score that anybody else is probably going to put up in this game, or it's right there, maybe a 25, 26. So Ridley's very viable here.
Yeah.
Browning.
I can't get there on DraftKings.
No, not as a captain.
FanDuel though, I want to take some shots there.
Christian Kirk, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon. Anybody we could cross off the list? Can Evan Ingram get it done?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he can get it. He's done it before.
Yeah, and he's cheap. He's too cheap.
I'll give you Evan Ingram's entire season in a nutshell. 6 to 9 targets. 5 to 7 receptions. Under 10 fantasy points. I don't know how he does it.
Consistent, I guess.
I don't know how you could do it. 8 targets, 5 receptions, 9.9 fantasy points. It seems mathematically impossible. 8 targets, 7 receptions, only got you 12. Like, if you can give me 8 targets, 7 receptions, I will sign on for that every day.
I know.
But the worst possible outcome for that is a low A dot and no yak.
He might be the person that's most hurt by Lawrence struggling in the passing game this season.
Yeah. He had some monster games though last year, including a 40-pointer right around this time of year. It was right around the playoffs. It might have been in the playoffs, actually, in the fantasy playoffs, which would have been 2 weeks from now. Last season, I think it was a fantasy playoff 40. Like, oh my God, if you went up against Evan Ingram this week, you did not advance to round 2.
Yep.
Any other viable captain plays here? And who are your favorites from this group? Like, I don't think anybody else. Maybe Zay.
Zay, yes, absolutely. Yeah. I would put Zay up here.
Yeah. Of this group, I mean, I think, like, do I got to play Tyler Boyd?
I mean, DFSupNORTH makes an interesting case for him. He had some targets last week. You know, I don't know. It's tough for me to get to Boyd as well.
I don't think Boyd's role changes at all from last week to this week. But I don't think Higgins coming back actually does anything good or bad for Boyd. Yeah, more of the same. He'll be out there the same amount. And Irwin was the one playing for Higgins.
Yeah, I think it's right to have Boyd up there as an option on the captain list, but you know, nothing exciting, obviously. Yeah.
Not a play I'm excited to play. Who's your favorite? Like who's your favorite?
I like the leverage potential here, so I'm really interested in Zay Jones as one of my top 3. I'm also interested in T. Higgins just because of his price. Okay. I think if a Bengals pass catcher is going to get there, it's going to be one of the lower priced guys. T. Higgins, he's cheap enough to make it interesting.
On Thursday, you were on the right track with wanting to be contrarian, but instead of saying Metcalf, saying Lockett, but it could have just been Metcalf. We should have just said, you know, Lockett's like basically the other half of that coin, Metcalf and Lockett.
And I really do think we're going to get significantly depressed ownership once lock hits for all these Bengals guys, which is probably right. But this is again one of those spots like last week where you could get some legitimate leverage on guys that are really talented pass catchers.
Effectively, the crowd will just want to load up on the Jaguars because that seems like the better side. And if you did that last night with the Chiefs, your night didn't go very well.
No.
All right. So in order to make a lineup, we always need to find some turds or cheapies that make it possible. So I'm going to scroll down here, and it looks like Zay Jones is 5,200. It's not that cheap. We got our kicker zone, and as soon as we get below the kicker zone, we've got Dearness Johnson, Tanner Hudson. Random tight ends. Random tight ends.
Can I just say this? I'm not going below 3K tonight.
Who would you even choose?
I don't think there's a reason to go below 3K. I really don't.
I don't think you can. All these guys are real zeros. So Luke Farrell, Tank Bigsby, Trent Irwin, Drew Sample caught a pass and a touchdown, but whatever. Irv Smith, not used. So, yeah, I mean, it's the turd zone. And even Trent Irwin. Yeah. I mean, do I really need Trent Irwin with Higgins back?
No. I mean, could he score a touchdown? Sure.
Yeah. DraftKings did a real job here of raising up the salaries of some of these guys. So, how does a lineup look when, you pretty much have nothing going on here below 4K?
Yeah, I think, that's part of why I like Zay and T. Higgins is because you don't have to go down to this range. But again, we don't have to we're not dying to pay for the quarterback or running back on the opposing team. So it's a lot more salary to play with than a typical slate.
Let's try to make a lineup. So again, we don't have a lot of turds on this one. Really minimal turd availability. So with that being understood, there's 2 ways to go with these lineups. Of course, we could start expensive with. Let me get the blurb on ETN here. Questionable, expecting the running back to play, open the possibility could miss the prime matchup, blah blah blah. So, I mean, of course, if we get a surprise here, that would change everything. I guess
he's gonna play.
Yeah, he's probably gonna play. Can we trust him though to be healthy enough to sort of carry the load for a full game?
I mean, if you look back to last week, no.
Yeah. So that's a concern. So if we're getting off of maybe ETN as the top play, let's go Calvin Ridley.
You don't want to go
down
T-Law
to
just to see? Let's go T-Law just so we can see what the most expensive option is.
Okay. All right. With the most expensive captain, Trevor Lawrence. Of course, if we're going to play Trevor Lawrence, we've got to get a couple of his pass catchers in there. Or at least one, Evan Ingram, Higgins, or Ridley.
Kirk or Ridley in there.
The Riddler.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Expensive start. 6,150 average remaining. Kickers.
McPherson. I love McPherson tonight.
EMAC. Okay. Cincinnati kicker. Tanner Hudson. I like him.
Oh God.
You're not a Tanner guy.
No, not he's so
Okay.
he's expensive, isn't he?
He's not that cheap.
He's an interesting play, but he's just more expensive than I would like.
He's not that cheap for what he is. Could go Deontay. Hasn't done much with his opportunities. Probably needs an injury. Kenny G going 100% Mixon, of course. Classic.
I don't hate that.
Yeah, it's fine.
Could be some dump offs to Mixon tonight.
You never know. You never know.
Hey, one is Zay Jones. Zay Jones is interesting in there.
Look at the average salary remaining.
I don't want to say it. Get someone in there quick.
Yeah, we need to get somebody in there.
Put Zay in there.
Zay? Okay. Zay's been pretty shit, but that only gets us up to 7K. So this is the whole thing. This is where it doesn't really work. Maybe you get Higgins and it can go Higgins and Mixon if you want to kind of even it out. I don't love Mixon though for this game at all. The matchup is not good for him, but this is a fairly even matchup, which I don't mind. But I don't love Mixon at all. To me, he's a contrarian play. We can double kicker it. Okay, so people are saying double kicker. If you go double kicker on this lineup, which I do like, that leaves us money to get off of. You can get up to like an Evan Ingram or Mixon the other way. The only other player that I feel like is missing from this lineup that's a stud, to be honest, like, let's see, I've got Lawrence in there. I've got Higgins. So Ridley, and I'd probably go like Ingram. What do you think? What we discovered here, Bobbywow, is you're right. You could play the most expensive captain, and you don't really have to dive into the third zone as long as you're comfortable using kickers. And by the way, it's a Monday night game. Kickers and defenses rule the day.
Yeah,
I'll have a lot of that.
You going Browns defense tonight at all? I'm sorry, Bengals.
I think they're worth a shot. Also, yeah.
They're cheap enough.
It takes very little for a defense to get there nowadays. A sack, an interception. Next thing you know, they got 7 or 8 points, and they're the highest scorer at 3,000.
Yeah.
So I think you can play it. Anything stand out to you, Bobbywow? Like, do you have a flag plant or any kind of play here that's sort of popping for you in this one? It's like, who's the Chuba Hubbard of this game?
Yeah, I don't know that I have a flag plant. I'm just kind of sticking with the strategy of hammering the opposing team, the Bengals pass catchers, and also Mixon. I think the Bengals are going to be, again, I just think people are going to be really down on them, and rightfully so with Browning. But I think, from a fantasy point perspective, they could still put up some big scores. So I really like, Zay Jones on the Jaguars side, but I don't mind getting some T. Higgins. I don't mind Jamar Chase, and Joe Mixon's too cheap. So I think my captain exposure is probably going to be mostly invested in those guys.
Yeah, it's tough because Joe Mixon legitimately is not expensive for the role. And I don't, the matchup is good, is bad, I mean, but who cares? Like, matchup only matters in the macro.
Yeah. It's gross. It's gross for sure.
But again, matchups only really matter that much in the macro. In the micro level, anything can happen in a game. Like, he could score a touchdown. And what was another bad matchup that like absolutely tore it up? You just see it all the time where it looks like going in, it's not a good matchup on paper, but it doesn't matter. They tear it up.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think that tonight's the night to, when the field's going underweight on these Bengals guys, don't be afraid to go the other way.
Again, we saw it on Thursday. The field was underweight on Seattle and everything connected to them. And of course, DK Metcalf goes banana. Also in a terrible matchup. That was another one. It was a bad matchup.
There you go.
Oh, this matchup. You can't play the wide receivers here. Oh, of course not. And he goes nuts. So you never know.
Yeah,
there it
21 against Baltimore.
Yeah,
20
Kangaroo's got it. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Like, you can't overly worry about the matchup. It's not that important.
And I agree with 512 football, man. These are tournament strategies that I'm talking about. This is for tournaments. For single entry, yeah, I would change it up a little bit.
I don't know that I go Zay as my captain.
My guy. No,
yeah, I don't know. I'm going Zay captain for my single entry. $333. 20 man.
No, it's Trevor or Travis for me.
Probably. All right. Let's shift gears. Do you want to try to show let's see what happens when you put a cheaper guy in here first, and then we'll shift gears to FanDuel. So give me a cheaper captain that is legit.
DFSupNORTH likes Kirk, so let's throw him in there.
Okay. Kirk. And again, I am not as much on Kirk as DFSupNORTH is, but he's usually right about these things. So with the first guy, with Trevor Lawrence, you only had like 6K left after per spot. The average remaining with Kirk up there is 75-40. I think, again, I like the kickers in this game. I don't mind defenses and or kickers. I think you just mix and match those guys. So EMAC, he's the man. Fine.
Probably want Trevor Lawrence in there with Kirk.
Yeah, get T-Law in there. Okay.
What happens if you put Jamar Chase in there?
You could. I mean, it's affordable. You just can't get the rest of these guys. I think I'm with what you were saying earlier. I think like T. Higgins is like a sneaky guy. I'm going to throw a little T. Higgins in there instead. Just random. His
floor is super low, but yeah, at that price, he's sneaky.
Yeah,
he's a guy that'll come in after getting hurt, and you get hurt on the first play and be out for the game. You're like, what the heck?
Yeah. But again, dangerous, but I think maybe we already saw Chase with Browning, and it wasn't like that great last week. So maybe something else. But Chase is fine too.
Ingram's interesting.
Yeah, let's throw a little Ingram in there. 8,500 left for the last spot, and I don't like the math of the way this worked out just now, but you can get.
You could go Chase there, and then a little more interesting with the set.
It doesn't get you there either. It doesn't quite get you there either. Chase, you go Browning, the QB. What if you went Mixon and Browning?
There you go. See, I think people are going to do what you just did right there. And what I did in my head, like you could get, bypassing Browning and all these builds.
Yeah.
Which, makes sense, but like that's
or just
you want to pounce in tournaments. Yeah.
I'm playing this lineup. I think Browning gets in the end. Now, I don't love the Kirk thing, but whatever. For a $3 entry, who cares? I'm playing it.
There you go.
But you could afford whatever you want. So I am seeing that you do not need to get that turdly in this game. We could just kind of avoid the whole shit zone. The only guy, like I said, I do want some Tanner Hudson. I like that guy. He was a quarterback. He converted to a tight end. I love that story. Reminds me of Tay-Tay.
Oh, jeez. He's been good. He's been good.
How good was Taysom yesterday? Come on, he's out there. He's playing quarterback. He's playing tight end. He's a running back. What more do you want? Does everything. It's 5 players in one. If that guy was the quarterback of the New York Jets, I guarantee you we'd be in first place and the talk of the AFC.
If Bo Nix was the quarterback of the Jets, he'd be doing a better job than Tim Boyle. Any of these guys. Tim Boyle stinks.
Can we trade a first for Taysom Hill? I would do it. Let's bring him over.
Jets fans are stuck in misery forever.
Oh. And then to make it worse, the readily available hadn't found a job yet. Joe Flacco shows up.
He looked awesome.
And looked great. What is happening?
He was heaving the ball down the field. Oh, man.
Why have no one called Joe Flacco on the Jets? No, we're going to go with We're going to go with Tim Boyle. The fuck? They thinking?
Have you seen his college numbers? He was horrible in college.
I know.
I don't understand how he has an NFL job.
That's what I was screaming about. What do you call it? Will Levis, until he came out and like you're like, no, I'm playing Will Levis, and had that crazy week the first week. But I'm like, I don't know, man. This guy sucked in college, and now he's reverted back to that a little bit.
Will Levis is Dan Marino compared to Tim Boyle's college numbers.
Yeah, Tim Boyle was brutal. All right, so taking a quick gander at FanDuel. FanDuel, of course, favors running backs, and look at how they favor the running back. They favor what the hell? Trevor Lawrence 14-5, Bobbywow.
Too cheap.
They done fucked up. Here's how I make my lineup here. Can I get a kicker? I mean, it's like quarterback, top running back. That Q tag or ETN, though, I have a bad feeling about it. Let's go to the cheat sheet for FanDuel here and see what we can figure out. So Lawrence, ETN, Browning, and Mixon.
There you go.
Are we missing anybody?
I do think it's that simple. I think that's it.
Yeah. Oscar Gamble did not want Taysom Hill on the Jets. Osak Gamble. I would take Taysom Hill all day. Yeah, and Trevor Lawrence being the best of them, Browning, ETN. I'm cool with this. So then, how do we make it work, Bobbywow?
You definitely want to use some kickers.
DFSupNORTH is staking his reputation on Christian Kirk tonight. Just going all in on that one.
Kirk's been good. I don't blame him.
All right, I'm cool with it. We'll see what happens after the game.
We'll see what happens.
The best thing is when it works out, you can be like, yo, I said that. And then when it doesn't work out, but sorry, I was wrong. Move on to next week. It's the beauty of these.
It's the beauty.
These breakdowns.
No one knows. At the end of the day, right? No one really knows.
Of course not.
Just take your best guess. I think Zay Jones and Tyler Boyd become more interesting again. Tyler Boyd, even more so. He could catch a touchdown, and 8,500 on FanDuel, that could be enough.
Normally, I would think Evan Ingram could catch a touchdown. We didn't go to fucking touchdown all year. So, like, normally I'd like the tight end at 10K that gets 7 or 8 targets on FanDuel. Like, that's where you want that tight end on FanDuel. What about Tanner Hudson? Tanner Beast Son.
You're staking your reputation on Tanner Hudson,
yeah.
It sounds like.
Yeah. People who are going to watch this are going to be like, Kevin said the name Tanner Hudson like 14 times during that breakdown.
I'm getting Johnny Munt flashbacks.
No. This is no Johnny Munt. This guy, Tanner Hudson, is going to be a name that you recognize next year.
He's far and away the best tight end on the Bengals. I don't get why he doesn't play more.
He's getting more and more playing time. It's happening now. He's
more viable on FanDuel to me. He's cheap enough.
Like at 7,500. Hold on a second, because you need a cheap guy if you don't want to go all defenses here. So you 75. That doesn't work. You can't type in the number, Kev. Okay, I put in Tanner Hudson, and now I can get EMAC as my last spot with a double QB with ETN. You got Hudson in there. Eric, safe, cashy.
I don't hate it. Yeah. Browning likes going to the safety valve, the tight end, Tanner Hudson.
Richard Sanchez says he thinks his odds of playing with fire and coming out fine are higher than his odds of winning a tournament with Joe Mixon in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true for 100% of fantasy football players at this point. Everyone's walking out a little crispy after playing him.
We don't know how talented Richard Sanchez is in terms of his fire handling abilities. It's difficult to set odds on such a thing.
It's a fair
I don't
point.
know about his experience. Could be a fire handler. Could just be a guy throwing that out there. We don't know. I can't set odds on this market. There's no way. I cannot set odds for that. I like this lineup, Bobby. What do you think?
I like it. So here, just one quick question for FanDuel. Do we see a scenario where Trevor Lawrence doesn't run a touchdown in? Maybe he passes for one, maybe ETN runs for one, but a scenario where Browning could sneak in as MVP? He throws a couple touchdowns.
Yes.
This Jaguars team seems to be everything's so spread out. If Lawrence isn't running for touchdowns, things are really spread out. I think that potential is there.
I think a low-scoring game where the Jaguars kick some field goals, maybe Etienne runs for one, somebody else catches one. Browning throws for two, but he runs one in. There's a scenario there where Browning.
The paths are there.
Yeah, there's passion. It's not a lot. I don't like Browning as an MVP at all.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make the case.
If you're, I'll say this like I say about FanDuel every single time we talk about them, which is if you're really trying to win one of these tournaments, I don't think you can solo ship this contest with Trevor Lawrence as your captain. I don't think there's a scenario where you could come up with a unique lineup for that. That's also, let me see the ownership on Lawrence. This is just a prediction. Yeah, so we're predicting 30%.
I think it'll be 40%.
Yeah, it's going to go higher than that. Every version of a lineup with Trevor Lawrence is probably going to be repeated. You know what won't be repeated, Bobbywow? Like Lawrence with no pass catcher.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't go there.
But I'm saying that's the line. Like you want to get weird with a lineup that no one's going to have. That would probably do it.
Yeah, I think so.
But for the most part, you're just going to dupe a million people with a Lawrence lineup. So I would almost say, I don't know.
I'm fading the top two guys. If you're trying to take down a tournament on FanDuel,
you're not going Lawrence or
Etienne aren't my MVP.
Here's my crazy scenario for what happens tonight. Etienne hurt on the second play. D'Ernest Johnson comes into the game and is a stud and just does what a starting running back would do in this environment, which is put up 25. D'Ernest Johnson, the Nuts MVP at 0 ownership. Taking down I would play. That's a worthwhile FanDuel lineup to play. What are the odds that Travis Etienne with the Q tag re-injures or gets hurt in this game?
It's viable.
It's beyond viable. I would say I would put the odds. The comments are killing me.
Yeah, I know.
I would put the odds at 20%.
Well, here's the thing. It's not just about Etienne getting hurt. That's phase one. But now you need D'Ernest Johnson to do something.
Yeah, well,
that's the other part of the equation.
But I didn't. Yes, that lowers the odds, right? The first odds, though, I would say of Etienne or any running back getting injured in game, we're at 10 to 15%. That happens a lot.
Yeah, that's fair.
Now you go in with a Q tag, raise it up a little bit, 20%. Okay. But you're right. The second part of then the other guy coming in and smashing and being the nuts, that lowers you to probably in that 3 to 4% range. But that's more than my chances of winning this solo if I'm just making a Trevor Lawrence lineup, right? Isn't it so much better?
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, let's make a I'm going to do it on screen. D'Ernest Johnson. Now, the other thing, Bobby, is this probably just works as plugging him in the flex, but lots of people will have him as a flex play. Like, it's the safer version where you just throw him in the flex. I think this almost works better on DraftKings where no one will play him as a captain.
Wow.
Yeah. It could work at that price. Put him in there. D'Ernest Johnson. Boom. What? What are you crazy? Nope.
Geek, you get D'Ernest Johnson and Tanner Hudson in there. You could do whatever you want.
Can't play Tanner and Johnson. Don't need it. That's too much. You took it too far.
So let me ask you this: who's got a better shot at captain, D'Ernest Johnson or Tanner Hudson?
Of captain, D'Ernest Johnson definitely.
Okay.
Not even close. Tanner Hudson is not a captain viable play, even if he does his best thing that he could possibly. Oh, hold on. See, this is the problem when I go off on this for a while. Etienne is playing. I was just painting a scenario where Etienne gets hurt early and just like how you win the tournament solo. This is not. Etienne is playing and he's fine. He's got a Q tag. I was just saying, wouldn't it be interesting if he gets hurt and how you could possibly win a solo tournament on FanDuel, which is hard to win because everybody's playing Trevor Lawrence as their captain. Maybe it's Browning. Maybe you got to go to Browning to be different.
I think Browning gives you the best shot on FanDuel for sure, and Joe Mixon too.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure. I wasn't upset, even though you're yelling at me, Daniel. I was not upset. I was not yelling at you. I just want to make sure that it's clear that he is fine and playing ETN.
Let's just not forget, this game is big for Jacksonville for so many reasons. For the standings, it's big because they're at home. First time on Monday night in a while. They are pumped up, and Travis Etienne is in a gorgeous spot. So, yes, just to reiterate, Travis Etienne is a solid play.
Yeah,
but it's a good scenario to think through.
Again, we bring it back to the first thing we looked at when we opened up the breakdown, which is the power rankings projection, which has been really good. And this does definitely imply that Jacksonville running backs should do well. Cincinnati running back, not well. I'm going to leave it there, Bobbywow.
Yep.
Monday Night Football Showdown, week 13. Guys, next week is the last week of your fantasy football season. We go into the playoffs, Bobbywow.
Are you calling them losers?
No, of your regular season.
Okay.
So I was going to say, I hope that everybody is making the playoffs and going to keep it going.
I hope so too. Best ball tournaments too, right? Those end next week.
Yeah, a big couple weeks coming up right now. Fun part of the season. The other thing I just discovered, Bobby, is that we're in December where, not that I discovered we're in December, I knew that, but we're in a time where the weekends, there it is, Christmas season, but also we're going to start getting Saturday football, Monday 2-game slates.
Monday double
we
headers.
got 3-game slates. We got Christmas slates going on. There is going to be a lot of football over the next 4 weeks, like crazy amounts of football.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. Truly is.
And Bobbywow will be here with me.
Me and my Christmas tree. Yes.
With the Christmas tree in the back, breaking it all down. We got 3-game slates, 2-game slates, 1-game slates, showdowns. I was just being asked in the background, like, should we cover every showdown? There's a 3-game slate. I was like, I don't know. I'm going to cover a lot of showdowns.
The answer is always yes.
But more importantly, we're going to cover a ton of these 2s and 3s. So stick around. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel for that stuff. I love 2-game slates. I love 3 games. I like all this shit. But it's going to be a challenge for us from a content side to be aware of all these games coming up and everything. So that should be a lot of fun. Yeah, let's kick ass on this slate. Last thoughts on this game, Bobbywow? Is it just play T. Higgins? Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it's don't be afraid to get some leverage on the Bengals pass catchers tonight, and Zay Jones on the Jaguars side is really intriguing.
I like it. All right, let's wrap it up there. Good luck tonight. We'll see you at the top of the leaderboards.